What down with the YouTube? It's Marty Too Major, and I'm back with another reaction video. Today we gonna be reacting to 12 more terrible things the FBI has done. So we go dive right into it. I want y'all to sit back and I want y'all to watch this video with me. Let's go.
And blasted them with sounds like dentist drills.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. Today we're discussing more heinous deeds committed by the FBI. For our criteria, we're only considering completely confirmed misdeeds.
USA Gymnastics, in concert with the FBI and the Olympic Committee, were working together to conceal that Larry Nassar was a predator.
Viola Liuzzo. In the 1960s, the FBI targeted various members of the civil rights movement, including activist Viola Liuzzo, who frequently gave rides to fellow activists. In March 1965, Liuzzo and 19-year-old African-American Leroy Moton were driving back from Selma towards Montgomery, Alabama. Local members of the Ku Klux Klan saw them together and shot and killed Liuzzo. Turns out, one of them was an FBI informant. This wasn't just covered up. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover smeared her reputation, telling the press that she had a substance use disorder and implying that she had a sexual relationship to Moton. There was no evidence for any of this, and FBI involvement only became public knowledge in 1978. The death of Ibrahim Todashev. The Boston Marathon bombing of 2013 was a major tragedy, and if you've seen our previous FBI video, you'll know they don't have the best track record for handling tragedies. A month later, they interviewed Ibrahim Todashev, a friend of the bombers.
He wasn't even nervous because he's not involved in anything.
After being interviewed for 8 hours in his apartment, Todashev allegedly attacked them, and FBI agent Aaron McFarlane shot him dead. They subsequently delayed releasing the autopsy report, which eventually revealed that he was shot 7 times, none from close range.
He didn't do nothing. I know him. He just wanted everything to be over.
The agent responsible had already been sued twice for police brutality, and many believe it was actually a murder.
My life after they killed my sons broken on 2 parts.
Involvement in McCarthyism.
Come on, man, y'all tripping. He ain't do nothing. He ain't do nothing. And y'all shot the man to death and y'all killed him. And now his people hurt because y'all want to pull y'all weapon out and play dirty games. But let's finish the video, y'all.
Also known as the Red Scare, McCarthyism, named after Senator McCarthy, was an extreme repression of left-wing ideology in America and its sphere of influence. Historian Ellen Schrecker claims Hooverism would be a more fitting name after the FBI's director.
And if they put the word commie on someone, that meant that that person was an agent of the Soviets.
In the early 50s, they embarked upon a communist witch hunt, which led to many people losing their jobs because of largely false evidence. They also broke countless laws pursuing them, such as robberies and wiretaps.
We were using the same methods that Hoover accused the Communist Party of using.
The FBI stole from the National Lawyers Guild 14 times in just 4 years. Additionally, they infiltrated numerous governments in and around South America, initially to monitor Nazi activity, but they quickly became focused on communism.
Foreign counterintelligence is a top priority of the FBI.
The death of Filiberto Ojeda Rijos. After being colonized by Spain in 1508, Puerto Rico passed into American hands in 1898. As such, Puerto Rican movements for independence have landed in the FBI's crosshairs. One militant revolutionary, Filiberto Ojeda Rijos, became an FBI target in 1990 after a heist. In 2005, they found his home and wandered up in broad daylight. According to the FBI, Ojeda began to shoot at the agents. Ojeda's wife and neighbor said the FBI opened fire first. An official report stated that an FBI agent had set off a flashbang grenade as a diversion, which could understandably have been interpreted as gunfire. Ojeda died of a bullet to the lung. Suppressing internal dissent. Since 1989, the whistle...
He died to a bullet to... He had died, he got shot, he said to the tongue or something. Imagine getting shot in your lungs, tongue, like... You know that's real painful. You don't want to go through that. But mostly and firstly, nobody want the FBI in front of your house. Nobody want the FBI in front of the house because You never know how the situation could play out. You never know.
Whistleblower Protection Act makes it illegal for any federal agency to retaliate against whistleblowers. However, that doesn't mean that whistleblowers are actually safe in practice. FBI agent Jane Turner reported the agency's mishandling of child abuse cases and theft of items from Ground Zero after 9/11. This got her fired, but thankfully she took it to court and heroically won after a years-long fight.
So when I had to blow the whistle, it was very, very difficult.
In 2008, veteran FBI agent Terry Albury, the only black field agent in the Minneapolis office, leaked information about racial bias and harassment. He ended up sentenced to 4 years in prison, and these are far from isolated cases. Puerto Rican independence. The FBI has a long history of interfering in Puerto Rican independence movements, particularly as part of COINTELPRO, a covert and illegal counterintelligence program that targeted political dissidents in the 1950s and 60s. Unsurprisingly, Hoover was the driving force behind these efforts. The Carpetas program tracked 75,000 Puerto Ricans using FBI surveillance and informants. Pedro Albizu Campos, leader of the independence movement, had a 4,700-page file. He was jailed and allegedly subjected to radiation experiments. This wasn't law enforcement. It was about controlling Puerto Rico and crushing dissent. Failing to protect Malcolm X. In 1965, civil rights activist Malcolm X was assassinated. 3 members of the religious organization Nation of Islam were convicted of the killing, but in 2021, 2 were exonerated. So what really happened? Some have suspected FBI involvement.
The FBI and the New York City police had Malcolm X under surveillance.
What we do know is that they were surveilling Malcolm X and received a tip from an informant about the assassination. Meanwhile, the NYPD did a poor job of securing the crime scene. At the least, the FBI could declassify their related files.
Indeed, the FBI probably had something to do with it.
In 2024, Malcolm X's family filed a $100 million lawsuit against the FBI, CIA, and NYPD, alleging a cover-up.
What was it that the city was trying to protect?
Wounded Knee operation.
How y'all do Malcolm X like that? I'm so heated, y'all. They try to cover up their tracks. At least the family probably win that $100 million lawsuit because y'all like to play games.
In 1973, 200 Oglala Lakota and American Indian Movement followers occupied Wounded Knee in South Dakota for 71 days, protesting the corruption of tribal President Richard Wilson.
The protesters called for a federal investigation of corruption on reservations in South Dakota.
The FBI had already been targeting the American Indian Movement through COINTELPRO. Even so, given that this was also the site of the infamous Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890, you might assume that the government would feel reluctant to exercise a heavy hand.
They were shooting machine gun fire at us, tracers coming at us at nighttime, just like a war zone.
Well, FBI agents and the United States Marshal Service laid siege to the town, and in the ensuing confrontation, 2 Native Americans were killed and over a dozen other people wounded.
The White House will not negotiate while guns are pointed at federal officials in Wounded Knee.
Murdering Black Panthers. The Black Panther Party rose to prominence in the 1960s as part of the Black Power movement.
The FBI is now watching the Panthers' every move.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover called them, quote, the greatest threat to internal security of the country. In 1969, the FBI orchestrated a raid on the Chicago apartment of 21-year-old Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois Black Panthers.
Black people need some peace. White people need some peace. And we are going to have to fight. We're going to have to struggle.
In the early hours of December 4th, Hampton, who had been drugged, was asleep with his fiancée when a police team entered his home. His fiancée, who was 8.5 months pregnant, was dragged out of the room as police shot and killed Hampton. Police fired over 100 shots, while only 1 bullet came from the Panthers, triggered by a death convulsion after Hampton's comrade was gunned down.
Based on film, that all the bullets coming into that apartment came from one direction, and that was from the police side.
Larry Nassar. Between 1996 and 2014,
they dragged his wife, who was 8 months pregnant, out the room. And while they shot him over 100 times. What y'all think in the comments? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me what y'all think. When y'all watch this video And when y'all sit back watching me eating y'all popcorn, doing whatever y'all do, y'all tell me what y'all think when y'all hear these things.
Many members of the U.S. women's national gymnastics team fell victim to Larry Nassar in the largest sexual abuse scandal in American sports history.
This guy is despicable. This guy is disgusting.
Nassar, the team doctor, exploited his position to assault more than 260 women, many of them gymnasts. Olympic gold medalist Michaela Maroney reported it to the FBI, but said the agents ignored her claims and falsified her statements.
Not only did the FBI not report my abuse, but when they eventually documented my report 17 months later, they made entirely false claims about what I said.
Nassar was convicted in 2017 and sentenced to 60 years in federal prison. If he survives, he will serve 2 additional sentences in Michigan, both with a minimum of 40 years.
I just signed your death warrant.
Richard Jewell. In the summer of 1996, Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta, Georgia, was the site of a terrorist attack. A pipe bomb exploded, but security guard Richard Jewell had spotted the suspicious bag early and helped evacuate the area, saving lives. Despite his heroism, the FBI, struggling to find a culprit, focused on Jewell as their prime suspect.
Television cameras surrounded Jewell's apartment as federal agents searched for evidence.
Though he was never charged, the media vilified him, destroying his reputation.
Still tailed by FBI agents and unable to get a job, his only source of income is now a telephone hotline.
2 years later, the real bomber Eric Rudolph was caught, but by then the damage was done. The agents responsible faced little consequences and remained employed by the FBI.
For 88 days, I lived a nightmare. For 88 days, my mother lived a nightmare too.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get The Waco Massacre. The Branch Davidians were a Christian cult at the Mount Carmel compound near Waco, Texas. In 1993, the U.S. government launched a siege following a failed ATF raid, which had been compromised when the Davidians were alerted in advance.
The ATF learned from an undercover agent that Koresh knew they were coming. They didn't turn back.
The standoff lasted 51 days, culminating in an FBI-led assault with tear gas.
This is not an assault. We are not entering the building.
Shortly after, a fire consumed the compound, killing at least 76 people, including 20 to 28 children. The fire's cause remains disputed. Some believe it resulted from the tear gas's flammability and gunfire, while the government claims that the Davidians set it themselves. The FBI denies firing live rounds that day. The siege deeply influenced extremist Timothy McVeigh, who carried out the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing in retaliation.
It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil.
Were there any more egregious crimes we forgot to include? Leave them in the comments.
We know that these FBI agents have committed an obvious crime.
What's wrong with them FBI agents? Y'all, the best advice I could tell y'all is stay away from them. I know they like to come to you, but try your best to stay away from them because y'all seen it with me. They no good. Like, they just out they shit, just full blown out they shit. But it's more than 2 major and I'm checking out.